Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Creating Lasting Change. I'm super excited to be here this afternoon, and I would love to introduce you to Alexandria Barker. She is a channel, an award-winning speaker, an international best-selling author, and a contributing author for a Hay House book by Sara Landon called You Are a Channel book. That's being released in this July. Wow. And
Yeah,
today
yeah,
we're going
yeah.
to be discussing with tapping into your higher self, really having that deeper connection. So welcome, welcome, and please share a little bit
Oh,
about yourself and
thanks
let's
so
delve.
much.
Like, I'm excited to delve into this whole conversation
Yeah,
about tapping. And
yeah. Well, for me, the journey's been going on about 25 years now, and it was my father passed fairly suddenly, which kind of kicked me into the spiritual path and everything. Started studying, Reiki and meditation and all kinds of natural healing. Wrote a book about that, then got into the chakras, wrote a book about that, and a children's book, which was also just newly released, working on a card deck for children because I channel the chakra angels. So it just kind of started with we can heal our own bodies. And then for me, it got more into the spiritual part of it and more the mental and emotional healing that so many of us have to go through, and just really tuning into learning how to tap into your, as you say, tap into your higher self. And for me, the channeling has really bridged that for me. So that's just kind of your little Reader's Digest there. But yeah, I'd love to share a little bit about, because that's something everybody can do. I fully believe that everyone can channel. We're all channels. We're channeling all the time. We don't even know it, half the time, but we are. So we can definitely, because I believe we came here for this adventure. We came for the party, but we didn't intend to not bring our support system with us. We didn't intend to ever forget that, I believe. So yeah, I've got some hints on how people can tap into their own higher selves.
well, it's so
Whenever.
interesting because, growing up, I recall, hearing messages, hearing thoughts, and I would go and I would say things to friends and family, and they all pretty much said, "That's not true. What are you talking about? You're crazy." So it shut down on me. And I would say it probably didn't open up again, really open up, because I didn't allow it
Yeah.
until my later 20s. And because, I would hear voices. I mean, there were days where I'd be like, my head was so overloaded with voices. I'm like, I am really going crazy. So, I remember
Yeah.
being on a 6-lane highway and pulling over into the middle and being like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I don't understand. There's just too many voices in my head. What's going on? I don't want to be crazy. I remember saying this,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
just shut down, and that was about 17, 18, and then it didn't reopen, or I didn't allow it to reopen due to beliefs around it.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Well, I think that's a really good point, that if something is happening with us and we don't want it to be part of our lives, we are the ultimate authority over our spirituality, and our spirit guides and our helpers and teachers are there to help and teach. They're not there to force it on us or shove it down our throat. And that's all you have to do is say, not now. I'll let you know when. I had something similar. I started seeing auras very spontaneously when I was getting my second level Reiki. And all of a sudden I'm seeing them all around my Reiki teacher and all around, and then I'm just seeing them in general everywhere. And it was kind of freaking me out, like what you say, it's like there's too much going on, too much information. It felt like it was none of my business, like I don't want to be seen. It felt like privileged, like I was looking in someone's medicine cabinet or something. It's like I'm not looking at the makeup, the face that you put out into the world. I'm looking at what's behind the scenes, but I didn't want it because it was rude. And so I did turn that off. And now I kind of can turn it on when I want it, but it's not like all the time, because it's just like it's TMI. It's too much information. I don't want to know all this about people. So yeah, but it's just good to know that in our own time, in divine time, we can make these choices to allow these gifts or not.
Yeah.
you know
Yes, absolutely. So
so
what does tapping into your higher self mean?
Well, for me, it means it's a lifestyle. So for me, it means I start my day, I have my cup of tea, I bring it up to, or out to my sanctuary outside or in here, and I sit with my journal and I just, sort of free flow. Actually, what I can actually recommend for other people who are wanting to tap into that, just sit there, breathe. I always like to take like 3 deep breaths, drop down into my heart center, and then I just say, what does my soul want me to know? And then I just write. And it's so funny because people will like, well, how do I know I'm not making it up? Okay, well, give yourself that license and just pretend, just imagine if I was receiving a message from my higher self, what might it say? Kind of thing. So then your ego will kind of quiet down and kind of go, oh, she's just writing fiction, basically. She's just an excerpt, so it'll shut up, and then all this good stuff can come through. And then if you revert back to it or read it into your phone so that you're hearing yourself say it back to you, give it a couple of days and listen to yourself back, and you'll be like, wow, that came through me. That was not from me, because that's not how I talk to me. Most of us are not saying, so many of the messages are, we love you. You're doing so great. We're so proud of you. We're so happy. Really, how often does our mind talk to her? Like, our ego doesn't talk to us like that. So that's the first clue, that you're tapping into something bigger than yourself. And when you just start to allow it, and then those are the messages you're going to get, but those messages are pretty profound. But it's just it's giving yourself permission to do that. So that I found was the biggest hurdle for most people, but I do it every day, like I channel every day. And now I've started working with, like, you can incorporate things like tarot, you can read for yourself, but with the intention that you're going to connect with your higher self, or read crystals or whatever. People, there's just so many ways to get in there, and just to allow it. It's mostly just give yourself the time to play.
Mm.
And
And
it's
it's
just
so
so good
important,
though.
like,
Good.
because I call it guidance writing, but it's the same thing. I just sit down in the morning and I'll
Yeah.
ask a question, and it's like I just open up. And I gotta tell you, in the first few times I did it, I giggled because I was like, this isn't true. I'm making this up. I did. I actually had that conversation, and I have been doing this now for a while. So, but I do notice there is a very different response and way I write than I normally do. So the response that I'm getting, even though I'm writing it and I'm hearing it and writing it out, it is very different than the way that I speak to myself, whether I'm talking to myself lovingly or whether I'm beating myself up a bit. There's
Yeah.
still a huge
Yeah.
difference in communication and speaking styles, which I find so interesting.
Yeah. It's really true. And for me, one of the convincers also was when I would go in kind of with a question, but knowing my answer to the question, so there imagine like a relationship sort of a question, and you're like, well, I've got my point of view, right? And then you're going into it, and when they take the other person's side, or they or give you a completely different answer that you haven't even considered, then you're like, okay, well, I really know. And but I think people think of it as like, well, it's coming from your imagination. Well, that's how God speaks to us. Our spirit speaks us through our imagination. And even like Einstein says, the imagination is everything. It's like, it's a preview of life's coming attractions. It's one of his quotes that I love, because I like to think about when you're visualizing, you're tapping into that. I think it's just, our imagination is such a gift. It's not something to be just like something poo-pooed, like, oh, well, like, that doesn't count because it's from your imagination. No, that's your creative genius that's, allowing for this to come through. So I think that's one good thing. If people just kind of like just accept that, yes, it's coming through me. It's coming through me through my imagination. How else is it going to get here? I don't know. They're not going to change, like, you're not going to see a billboard suddenly, well, you might, but that's probably something you might turn off because you're like, that's too much. I can't handle that. Don't talk to me through billboards, like,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's,
it's being open, like, and it just recently happened to me where I was guidance writing. I asked a question and I'm like, I'm not really getting a whole lot of responses. And then a friend called me and started talking to me about something. And I remember being in the shower going, you never responded to me. And I heard clear as day, we sent your friend. And I'm like, oh my God. I laughed so hard in the shower. I'm like,
That's
yeah, all
so
right.
great.
All right. So now for me anyway, and I would love to hear your insight on this, is I'm now when I ask these questions, I'm really looking at all possible answers because now I'm like,
Yeah.
I have no idea how this answer is going to come.
Yeah, and why limit the universe? Like why do that when it can come exactly and it can come from anywhere. It can be like, everything has a message. And any book or you turn on the radio and there's a song with that line in it and it's like, oh wow, that's really significant to me. To a million people, maybe not so much, but it's the answer to because I think that's very key is just to hold that intention that you are going to draw the answer to you, however it comes, let it be what it wants to be and just intend to receive the answer and you will, like within a day or so. Like I've never seen it fail, like really. It's so foolproof, really. It's just and I'm just so grateful to have that, and it's something again that anybody can do. Sit down with a journal or even just like I'll now when I channel, I'm mostly just channeling right into my phone and onto my recorder, and it's like anybody would think I'm just having a conversation on the phone, and I am, but I'm talking much further away, and it's great. It's just such a gift that I think when we start to use it, we'll realize how vitally important it really is, and to our inner peace and to our ascension, to how we're going to grow spiritually. We're not going to do it if we're locked into sort of the 3D mode of just um wrestling with your ego and everybody else and their egos, but you have to kind of elevate yourself to that degree. And that's where the 3 deep breaths really help. It has to be 3. If you do 2, you're not quite there. You do the third one, it's like, okay, it feels like you land, and 3 is such a magical number, as too. And then just dropping into your heart and just like, okay, I'm open, I'm ready to receive. Like, and don't criticize yourself, don't make fun of yourself, just give yourself that sacred time to do. And I think people who aren't doing it will be so amazed. So amazed.
Yeah,
So so
I
excited that
do
you're
agree.
doing this, and helping people know because it's just so great. So
Are
yeah,
there other ways that you tap in besides writing, for
yeah,
people to connect? Because some people don't,
yeah.
like I've heard a lot of people say, I don't like to journal, I don't like to write. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And I get that too. So for me, anytime I'm in nature, really, so I do try to spend a lot of time in nature. I'm really very blessed, here in Ontario, there's lots of, untamed beauty. And right where I live, I'm about 6 minutes away. So I can just go, to a wooded path and go walk along that. That's really helpful for me personally, just to really zone in and just connect with nature. Other ways, I mean, even like if you're doing like yoga or qigong or anything that's kind of slow and methodical like that, and you're doing it with the intention to connect with your spirit. I mean, everything is spiritual because we're spiritual, right? We're like, we can't not be, an activity can't not be because we are spirit. So there you go. So everything is spiritual. So really anything else, sitting petting your cat. I'm blessed again with 3 cats, beautiful, beautiful fur guides, and just sitting and spending time with them, or making music, like really it's just giving yourself that time to just like address like you're taking care of sort of the baser needs, and now you're wanting to elevate a little bit. So you're going to take the time, you can be gardening and just take the time to connect with the soil and with the plants. That's a very spiritual way of tapping into yourself too, because you're just, when you do that, you're just quietening down. It's like turning down the volume in your brain, and then you can hear all these beautiful messages coming through, and all of a sudden you notice that, oh, there's a butterfly like right there, and it kind of hangs out with you, or a dragonfly or something else that is like a messenger, or you'll keep hearing a bird and they'll be like right there with you. So I think it's really just to just set your intention and then just explore what works for you. Like,
mm,
how do you connect? Like maybe painting, or maybe gardening, or walking, or just doing the dishes can be very spiritual. You're warm, you're in bubbles, like it can be very a spiritual thing also. So I think you're only limited by your imagination, really. So start doing the things you love, and then while you're doing the things you love, you can just say, I'm grateful. I feel like that feeling of gratitude is going to open the doors also. If you're like saying like, oh, I'm so grateful that I can play music here, or I can play guitar, or I can play piano, or I can sing, or I can, you just being appreciative, because I really feel like we came here, like I think everybody's kind of overarching mission is to enjoy our lives. Like we came to enjoy all this beauty, first and foremost, and then to, raise the collective consciousness and all of that, but mostly to experience. We came for the experience. And so just letting ourselves do that. And then I think that automatically opens your heart and opens the doors to all this growth that's there for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, like everything that you mentioned, I've when I calm my mind, when I've been rock painting, I've gotten messages. When I exercise, and I do that daily, I now keep my phone right next to me, because if I get a really great idea, or if I get an answer to something, I immediately actually start recording it, because it's like, wow. Or
Nice.
nature for
Yeah.
me is really big. I mean, I am very
Yeah.
grateful. I'm
Yeah.
about
Me too.
15 minutes from the beach, and I
Nice.
love to just go. And what really calms me is like just playing with my hand in the sand. And next thing you know, it's like I'm getting answers to stuff. So like everything you have
Oh,
said has
that's a really good way to
actually
tap into
worked
it. Yeah.
well for me too. So I love all those ideas. They really, and sometimes we forget, like just getting outside and walking around the block. Get your brain, or get out of your environment, get your brain to calm down a little bit.
Yeah. I think too, like when you're doing things like that with the intention, like what we said, but if you can have a special spot that you go to, like if it's out in nature, ideal, but if you can't get out in nature, even in your home, if you can sort of set up a little space for yourself, that's kind of telling your brain and your body that I'm going into this mode now. Like I'm going here because I want to, that this is a sacred space. So like I've done that. I've got, you can't see much probably of my background here, but I've got scented candles, I got my flowers and crystals and everything, and and feather boa, oops, just to add to the, the kind of the to lighten the mood. And so every time I come to this space, I know that like my ego knows that this is important because I'm paying attention to that. So it's kind of giving my humanness the message that this is now time where we're going to commune with spirit. So so you don't get so much resistance. It's like you're training yourself. You're almost actually almost in a meditative spot, even just by sitting down, because you've already prepared your space, and anything you can bring to that. Like I said, scented candles, flowers. If you do Reiki, you might want to Reiki your space. You might want to bring some crystals into it. Whatever will make you feel like you're honoring that aspect of yourself. And I think that that's going to help that voice get really loud. It's like the voice, it's like, and I've heard this, other people say this too, that it's like you're, say you have a best friend, and they're always asking you for advice, and you give them really good advice, and they don't really act on it, and they don't do anything about it. But then the next visit, they still want to rehash and talk about the same issue that you've already gave them really good advice about. And it's like that, it's like I really can't add anything to that conversation. Like I've told you, I gave you everything I have on that. And I feel like it's the same with our higher self, our guides. It's like if we're not going to give them the opportunity to speak, or if they're going to speak and give us lots of good stuff, and then we're just kind of like, well, I just made that up. I'm not going to pay any attention to that. That little voice is going to get quieter and quieter and quieter. Like you really have to give it the respect that it's due, and make it special. And then it starts coming through really loud and clear, and like, absolutely. Like I can't not hear it now, because it's like it's so loud in my head, which is really, really useful, because I've gotten some really good direction from that in just life in general. I've been advised, I've heard, I don't know whether it's higher self or spirit guides or whatever, giving me instructions. It's helped me get out of, helped me not be in a really bad car pile up that I was supposed to do. Weather quickly changed. I thought that there should have been time, but I got the intuition that no, I'm not going to go that way. And then all of a sudden there was this blizzard that appeared out of nowhere. Had I gone where I was supposed to go, which was I was on the job too. Had I gone there, I would have been in this immense pileup where people were stuck for on the 401 major highway for hours, like 6 to 8 hours. People were bringing them coffee and stuff. I would have been right in the thick of it, but I just heard this no, really stern, really, it sounded just like my dad. It's like, okay, I won't, But so that's just one little example, but there's been so many where I've heard like even like pull over, get over to the right, just get over into this lane, stay in this lane. And then suddenly I blew a tire, and had I been in the left-hand lane, that would have been a problem. But since I had just switched over and it was like moments later, it's like, okay, thank you for that. And now I can take care of that. So it's like really practical things also, not just, it's not all like spiritual, like, you know, fairies and angels and stuff. Sometimes it's very practical. Like if you're going to blow a tire, you want to be there, not here. They couldn't
Yeah.
stop the tire from blowing, but they could get me where it would be safe for me, or like then not to go this other way into that. Like I say, just those are just a few examples, but they're ones that really helped shape my belief and just really drove the message home for me that, yeah, you got to pay attention to this, because when I don't listen to my intuition, stuff happens. It usually doesn't work out very good if I hear it and go against it. And I'm like, damn it, why did I do
Yeah.
that?
Yes,
Why
very
did
much so.
So so that doesn't happen so often anymore. Even if it's awkward, even if I'm canceling out on something at the last minute and they might be annoyed, but everything always seems to work out because like our higher self has this huge vantage. They can see everything. They know what everyone else is doing also. So they know what's right. They know what's good advice for you. So yeah, I think it's just such an important part of ourselves. I think if people, you can get through life without it, but it's so much better, so much sweeter with it and
Mhm.
more fulfilling and just, it just feels more, I don't know what the word is, but just more full. It's
Yeah.
more, to be in the fullness of the moment. You need to like, why not tap into that?
Yeah.
That
I
whole
mean,
scene.
I like how you say, if you don't listen to it, and this is prime example. Several years ago, I was really trying to listen to my intuition. I was more like I debated every answer I got. Okay, that's the truth of it. And I was at a red light and I was going to work. Work was 5 to 7 minutes away. And I heard make a right. Oh no. I decided to make the left to get on the parkway. So I was 5 to 7 minutes away. It took me 25 minutes because of an accident.
Oh
And I went,
no.
oh, okay.
Yeah, should have
Uh,
listened.
Lesson in learning to trust. And when we don't, here's the end result. So that was huge for me. And this was
Yeah.
years ago. Like it was really, really big for me. So I was like, all right, so you told me that, to make that right. So now like when I would go to work, I would stand at I would stand at that light, go right or left, right or left. I mean, it was, and I really learned just from something that simple to pay attention because of sitting in, it was like 25 minutes, 30 minutes of traffic. We didn't even move. I got on the parkway, couldn't even get back off and just sat there because of an accident. I was like, so. Mhm.
Ah, yeah, I know exactly. It's like that one that I would have been in. There was a couple of bad ones that year, it's going back about 10 years. And it was just that little patch between sort of, if anybody knows that area, it's like between sort of Trenton and Coburg. There's like issues along there. So I mean, we're talking like 40 cars piled up, that kind of thing, those kind of thing. And there was like three of them in the one year, and the one that I would have been right in the middle of. So yeah. And it's also people can tap into that when they're doing their muscle testing. Like your
Mm.
body knows, but your body is tapping into that also. So if you're muscle testing for a supplement or something, I feel like we're connecting with our higher selves also then. So just another way that you can make this a practical thing. Now you could even start listening to your intuition by like, asking your higher self what clothes you might want to wear that day. Like, what's a better outfit to wear today? Like, should I wear this or this? What color is better? And just to kind of get yourself used to maybe putting the reins in someone else's hands, like your own self. But you know what I mean? Not deciding for yourself, well, I was going to wear this, but oh yeah, maybe that. And then for whatever events unfold that day, it's just the perfect thing that you were wearing, or just so there's just so much to it, and I think it's a huge topic, but
Oh,
I
yes.
think it's really good that you really open this up because there's just so much that people can get from it, and yeah.
I mean, I
I
like
don't know
that
how
you brought up muscle testing. Muscle testing, like I did not realize muscle testing years ago either, and I didn't even understand what muscle testing is. So with that being said, what exactly is muscle testing? Do you want to explain to the people who
Oh, for me? Oh, sure. Well, and full disclosure, it's not something I use a lot because I use a pendulum, and I have a little wrist, but there are different ways you could have like extend your arm and say like I'm a man. And in theory I could put my arm down, but I'm a woman, it would be strong.
Mhm.
There's other ways people do it with rubbing their fingers together, and if there's a no, it'll be sticky, and if it's a yes, it'll be really slippery. Or there's this one. I never really I mean, I understand the mechanics behind it. It's kinesiology, and I understand that, but I just don't. I always think of like, am I putting too much pressure? Am I holding it, or am I being too relaxed to let it go? But I feel like when I'm using my pendulum, it's the same idea. So you're bypassing your ego, and you're actually connecting with your higher self, and you're getting these nerve impulses that are moving. In this case, the pendulum. So I trust that more. But that's just a me thing, like a lot of people just use muscle testing for everything and they have no problem with it. I just always had, it just kind of stuff. But like I say, with the pendulum, once I figured out I'm not talking to a rock on a string, I'm actually
Hmm.
connecting with my higher self, and that's what's making it move. And so, so I did a lot of, as a Akashic Records reader, I was doing programs where you use the pendulum. So I got very comfortable with using the pendulum. So now that's what I'll carry them around. I have one in my purse kind of thing, and I'll just like, and you can even use your body as a human pendulum. You can stand and just kind of lean forward and back and side to side. So some people get very proficient at all of that. And like this, I know people who swear by that, but just for me personally, it hasn't really worked out really good. But pendulum is another just an extension of that whole idea. But yeah, but there's just so much we don't know, and you really open up to your higher selves and really start. Like I channel a group, a collective group of ascended masters, and some of the information that comes through them is just phenomenal about how to navigate life. But it's something we can all do, just to give ourselves that time, have somebody either ask you the questions or use a recording device, and you'll be amazed at how wise you are. Because it's not just you, you're tapping into that wise eternal self, and getting, it's like, you can think of it as like a parent, or depending on your relationship with parents or whatever, but it's just that wise inner self that's coming through. And I think everybody deserves to have that. So I think it's worth just investing a little bit of time to learn how, and then just it doesn't take much, and you're way to the races.
Yeah. And then basically you gave several different ways to do that. So it's whatever resonates highest with
Yeah.
the people listening. So if you want to connect through nature, you want to connect through the beach, through water, through journaling, through muscle testing, because our bodies do know. Our bodies really,
Yeah.
really do know. They understand. Um, there's so much that, I mean, just the conversation on bodies is, how our bodies respond to situations, to individuals. There's so much about resistance in your body, and
Oh,
resistance is
yeah.
also your intuition saying, this is not the path, go a different path."
Yeah, like if you meet somebody and they might seem perfectly nice and your whole being is going nope, nope, nope. You know, it could be a past life thing, or it could be just their vibe is doesn't mean that they're not a good person, but they're just not a vibrational match to you. Like we all have our sort of signature frequencies, and if somebody else's frequency is not, it's like you're trying to listen to classic and they're listening to death metal, they might clash a little bit, so that might be all that it is you're picking up on, or you might be dealing with a narcissist or something, and you just don't know because they're love bombing you. So you're just thinking, oh, aren't they? Everyone else is like, aren't they lovely? And you're, oh, part of you
Yeah,
is going, I
yeah,
don't think so. Red flag,
yeah,
So yeah, pay attention to that because it can save you a lot of heartache. Like a lot of heartache down the road if you can start to learn to your body's wisdom. Yeah.
yeah. And that, in my opinion, is our higher self. If we're not
Yeah.
getting it through messages,
Yeah.
it's talking to our body, it's talking to, there's so many different ways that we can. It's just a matter of us being open to hear it.
And so if you're just starting, it might be something that you might want to keep private,
Yeah.
because you're not going to want to, I mean, if you're just kind of newly awakened and you're surrounded with people who maybe aren't yet, they might not be that receptive. They might kind of be jokingly, but make fun of you. And then you might get embarrassed. And, there is sort of that scenario. Um, or the other way, they might just decide that, oh, that you have all the answers and, you can save them doing it. So I would just say, just keep your own counsel with that. And just, it's time for you. Like it's your own sacred time, but it's something that even if you got kids at home, you can say, well, mom needs half an hour right now. So you can do this, whatever, but don't bug me right now, and then we'll do something else. But you can do that with, or you tell your dog, we'll take her a walk in half an hour, whatever. But set aside that time for you and can make that commitment to yourself. And I'd say give it at least, when I say half an hour, like I'm probably up here a little bit longer than that when I do my thing, but at least that, like, give yourself the time to kind of settle in and kind of like, maybe I'd like to pull an oracle card for myself. And instead of just looking at the book, I'll say, what does my higher self want me to know about this card? And like really examine the card, like for the personal meaning that's there, not just the generic that they publish, like yeah, yeah, there's just so many different ways, but it's mostly just giving yourself that permission and knowing that you're doing something of value, and you'll start to feel that you might like it at the end of the day. Like I like it at the start of the day, but you might find you sleep well if you take that time at the end of the day and maybe just, what did today mean? And just write about it. And what does my higher self think about today? Whatever that is. And then you're not kind of taking all that into your dreamland, like so you can just process the way you're supposed to without being, overstimulated, before you go right to sleep. So, so that's just the time of the day too. If half an hour is too much, take 10 minutes. Like give yourself that 10 minutes. It's just like if you're meditating, you don't start at a half-hour meditation. You start with like a maybe 3-minute meditation and then slowly build. Because if you say you're gonna, it's just like exercise. If I'm gonna jump on my rebounder and I haven't been on it, and I'm gonna jump on it and I'm gonna do an hour rebounding, I'm gonna not last an hour, and then I'm gonna feel like I'm, a failure or something. But if I got on it, said I'm gonna do 10 minutes, well, that's pretty easy. You can do anything for 10 minutes, right? And then maybe I'll do 10 minutes at lunchtime, and I'll do 10 minutes, before dinner. You can do the same with your personal, your personal time. You can sort of like, I'm just gonna take a walk by myself and I'm gonna talk to myself, or whatever. So anybody can fit it in. And the busier you are, the more you need it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I find it's actually, for me, it's part of my self-care practices. It is just
Yeah.
because self-care should be every day, not just,
Yes.
once a week or twice a week. It should be
Yeah.
incorporated. So I have my daily practices in the morning. However, I do it several different things during the day. My journaling time is usually first thing in the morning. So yeah,
What
it's a
else do you
must.
do that's part of your self practice, your self-love, your self-care
I
practice?
do journaling, I do exercising, I am doing subliminals, whatever it is that I need, I make sure I give myself the time during the day, and even right before I go to sleep. Like I have a unwind time so that I can
Yes.
think about letting go of my day and then what I'm kind of excited about for the following day. So these are things that I make sure. And I notice that if I get up and run because I need to do something that I normally don't do, I notice if I don't have my practices, I feel off during the day.
Yeah, it's true. I've noticed that myself, and I'm glad you mentioned about that going to bed that way though, because I've often taught that as a way. I used to give lectures about how to be happy, basically how to be happy, and a really good way to do that is just to basically what you just said is like just before you go and putting yourself to bed at night, think about the highlights of the day, like the 5 things or 3 things that you feel really good about. And if you're having a rough time, even if you, but you got out of bed, maybe you're really depressed, but you got out of bed and brushed your teeth and took a walk, yay, celebrate the crap out of that. Like it's still, that's really, really good, depending on where you're at. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be, so anyway, but focusing on that as you go to sleep, so you are sort of or like you said, being excited about the next day, you're going to sleep better. You're going to wake up already excited, and you're going to sort of predispose yourself to being in that happy place because your brain, while you're sleeping, it's your body's working on that, and it's like it's readying you and preparing you for a happy, successful day. And then the next day, your brain, because we have this what is it, articulate reticular activator, is that
Yes,
it?
RAS,
Yes. Okay.
reticular
Yes.
activating system.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I mean, so then your brain is like, okay, well, like I gotta be prepared for this quiz at the end of the day. I'm gonna need 3 to 5 things that I'm excited about. So then your brain is looking for that. So it's like again, you're just building and building and building. And then if you add the gratitude to that, then you're already like go from that to writing a thank you list for all the blessings that we have. And we have so many, just by virtue of being born and, where we are. And we have technology and we have all these gifts,
Yeah.
so yeah. So all of those things that just they help you connect with your higher self, but also just make you a happier person and help you exchange better energies with the people you love. So you're not, just like being in a bitchy mood and staying in a bitchy mood. And then by the time you're done, everybody's in a bitchy mood. Or you can take that time and just kind of, get centered and calm and, and I can appreciate, people being busy. I know when I had 4 kids and cats and dogs and 2 jobs and all of that stuff going on and husbands and stuff. So at one point in my life, the only quiet time I got was like in the car between jobs, getting home before I went to the next one kind of thing. And I would sit there in the car for like 5 minutes. It was all I had at the very beginning. That was like, but it made the difference. And I was like, oh, I feel calm. I'm dealing with my teenagers now in a very calm, happy way instead of just being like, like whatever. Right. So it's like, so bringing the best of yourself out, and then you tend to receive better too from other people. So even if you looked at it that way, the happier you can make yourself, the happier your experience is going to be. And that's your contribution to the collective consciousness. Because no matter any given time, what you're thinking, that is your gift, your offering to the collective consciousness. You're putting it out there, everybody's feeling it on some level. So your thoughts are really never very private. They're always like, you know, being projected out through our energy, right?
Mm.
So we're all so much more telepathic than we realize, so it's like,
Yes, we
well,
really are.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Mm.
crazy. It's really cool. But when you're aware of that, then you kind of, you might just be that much more careful about what you're thinking and stop and
Mhm.
turn thoughts around. If it's not something that you would say or something you would have printed in a newspaper, then you might want to revise it there because they're still very real, and when you
Yeah.
speak, they're coming out, and they want to live their life too. They want to, every thought you're thinking wants to be experienced, right? So if it's not a good thought, you might want to change it.
And
But we
that
can do
that that
that.
leads me to actually like part of my morning routine is I have a bike. I have a stationary bike in front of the mirror. So I'll do like 3 minutes of gratitude and then I'll do affirmations
Oh, nice.
that because mirror work is hugely transformational. It's hugely
It's so
transformational.
good, eh? And do
Very,
you ever catch yourself? Like, do you ever go to the mirror and kind of not have the happiest thought, and then you go, wait a minute, and, and then come back and go, you're beautiful, I love you, you're so, radiant today or something, whatever, right? That it's so easy to look in the mirror and be critical of ourselves, and then just think, oh, our poor little higher self, that poor inner child, you know, we just need to love these bodies, our earth suits, we just got to love them all up and just be so grateful for them because they're listening. Our bodies are so wise, and they're listening to everything we're
yeah.
saying and
Hmm.
creating more, so
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so
And those,
so there's
those,
a lot of responsibility there,
and those
right?
affirmations become beliefs. So what are you saying to yourself? So
Yeah,
all of this is really important to starting off your day, connecting to yourself, and
absolutely.
same thing with ending your day is just as important as is. It's either you're being super mindful or you're going through your day mindlessly.
Yeah, yeah. And really, who has time for that? Like,
Mhm.
our time here is, I mean, we're eternal beings, but our time here is finite. And our time in these particular bodies, that's finite. So why would you want to waste that? Like like it's really, don't let anyone take that away from you. Like social media, sometimes, like it's funny, that's how we met, but yeah, like I really watch my time on social media too. Like I'll get on, I'll make a post, but I don't hang out on there. I
Mhm.
mean, I have in the past, but I don't now. And honestly, I've just been doing for about a month. I've been taking like a real break from all of that. And I just find I am happier. It does make a difference. It does really make a difference in how you feel. And so now I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go on, but I'm maybe for 3 minutes, or maybe for like, I'm going to be very mindful. I'm not just going to be scrolling, 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 like, and end up with like a sore thumb by the time I'm done,
Yeah.
just from the nerve. But yeah, so being mindful of your time and your energy and all of that. And so more time with your higher self, and maybe less time worrying about, you know, because yeah.
Silly shit.
Yeah,
Less
it can
time
be,
worrying about silly shit. Yes. Yes.
yeah, because it can be a real time suck, and
Yes, it can.
yeah,
It really can.
yeah, and
So
and you do. So the other thing with that is you don't know what's coming up.
you don't.
So when you're preparing yourself for the day, you're doing your affirmations, you're being mindful, and all that. And I totally agree with you. I do the same thing. But if you get on and you're just scrolling, you don't know what you're going to encounter. I mean, a certain amount is going to be through vibration, but a lot, like, you don't really know. If you just start going and reading people's comments or whatever, so I mean, the strongest vibration is going to win. Like if you haven't set your intention and you're just
Mhm.
kind of waffling about, then you can get swayed whichever way, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's really important to take that control and really to, lock down, like, what do I want today?
Yeah.
Creating your own new world, your own, new earth. You're creating, well, what do I want to see in this new earth? So if this is what I want to see, how much time am I going to spend worrying about what Hollywood is doing? Or, you know, I mean, you
Oh,
name
yeah,
it, there's a
Hollywood.
different thing to worry about, right?
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
so we veered a little bit from the topic, but I think you know what I mean. Is
Yeah.
just comes down to like, like it's so like our whole vibrational mix is just like everything we're doing, what we're reading, what we're watching on TV, what we're like, how much, are you watching decent stuff on TV? Or are you filling your mind with all these horrific images? Are you watching news? Are you, like, so it's just paying attention to all of that, because your higher self doesn't need that crap. Like, I'm sure it's like, okay, I'll check in with you later. I'm not watching that, so
Yes. Yes, this is very interesting because it's all of it is so very true. Like, what are we bringing inside? What are we internalizing? So that is important to stop and notice instead of just watching and doing. Again, it's mindlessly versus really being
yeah,
intentional and being mindful, because when we're mindless, we're actually programming our brains and to whatever is
to be
going on
mindful.
in, whether it's social media, TV, there's so much in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it's just like it's like saying you care about your health and your fitness, obviously, just through this conversation, I know that. So it'd be like you doing that and then just say, okay, but I only eat processed foods and I only drink I don't touch water. You know, it'd be like that. It'd be like you're filling yourself up with garbage, but then saying, but I'm gonna run and I'm gonna, do my yoga or I'm gonna do whatever and I'm gonna say my affirmations, but you're filling up with garbage,
Mhm.
like that's what you're giving your body to make your
Yeah.
tomorrow's body out of, but it's the same with our brain. It's like if I, like read something, there's so, the internet, the one gift with the internet, we have so much access to brilliant minds and brilliant spiritual teachers, and they're just there at the push of a button, like crazy, so I mean we could be doing that just as easily as
Yeah.
checking out whatever Instagram,
Yeah. Well,
So,
it is about that time. I would love for you to share where people can reach out to you, and
oh,
it'd be
okay. Oh, thank
exciting.
you.
Yeah.
So it's just my name.com. So it's alexandriabarker.com is my website. And I do channeling, and I channel animals. I communicate with animals, and I can channel animals who are living or who have crossed over. And I also channel other people's higher selves for, if they're not really doing it themselves yet, I can sort of give them a hand. And that's just something that I do. I'm also doing I'm studying tarot, but I'm taking it right down to the roots. I've read oracle cards and tarot for forever, but not the Rider Waite deck. So that's my current passion, is I'm going like a card at a time. So I'm doing lots of videos on that to share with people on my YouTube channel, Alexandria Barker on YouTube. And yeah, that's just, as I say, another way to tap into, your higher self and the archetypal parts of you and all of that. Gets very fascinating too. So yeah, so thank you so much for allowing me to come on your show. This has been a lot of fun, and I love doing unscripted calls like this where we just talk and see what happens. And I do actually have a podcast that I do with a fellow who's also in the States. He's in North Carolina, and it's called Conscious Conversations with Darren and Alexandria. That's usually I do post on Facebook, but it's also on my YouTube. So yeah, so for this kind of conversation also that we're doing, and yeah, so they might find that interesting also.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everybody else has a lovely rest of your Tuesdays.
Have a beautiful day. Thanks you. Thanks you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Big love, everybody.